Hi everybody, my name is Barry Schwartz and this is the Search Buzz video recap. Today is Friday, January 3rd, 2014. Hope everybody had a nice New Year's. And this is the search news we covered over the past week at the Searchers Roundtable at seroundtable.com. First up, I should just say it was a pretty slow week, obviously being New Year's and Christmas break and everything like that. So the content's not all that extremely important, so you can stop watching now, but otherwise I have some cool stuff to tell you. Some SEO concepts and stuff like that that you might want to hear about. One, I covered this week, to survive, you must give Google your structured content and data. So this is a big thing going on in the industry right now is Google has this knowledge graph, Bing has Satori, which is basically their knowledge graph, where they're taking knowledge from websites, putting it in a structured database and giving that knowledge to users, not necessarily always citing the source. So a lot of people are saying, I'm not going to go ahead and provide my content, my content in a structured format, such as rich snippets, Schema.org, microdata, and other formats to Google because all they're going to do is go ahead and steal it from me, use it, and not give me the traffic. The problem is, it's not a win-win situation. Like, if you don't do that, Google's not going to rank you well. More and more, the sites that are ranking well are the ones that have rich snippets, that have Schema.org, that Google could better understand. So Greg Nyland, who's good ROI in Webmaster World, says, if you don't do it, you're going to die a slow death. Either you play the game or you step out. So there's a long thread about this at Webmaster World about the topic. It's a pretty interesting conversation, and you probably want to take a look at that. Speaking about that, this is kind of a pitch for XMX Israel because it's happening on January 26th, which is in 3 weeks from this Sunday. And I'm giving two presentations. One is a keynote on basically everything that happened in search, the most important things that happened in search 2013, and what that means for 2014. So it's going to be a pretty good speech, I think. The second thing is on predictive search. Now, obviously, predictive search comes from a lot of the knowledge graph information from the structured data that Google has. The question is, how do you get your information in that predictive search engine? So it's obviously weather, shows you information, birthdays, all that information is there. But what about, obviously traffic and stuff like that, but other things, like how do you build software that people want to subscribe to that sends them predictive information based off of their patterns? And I'm going to go into that in more detail and how that works and how you can actually go ahead and build it in my presentation XMX Israel. Maybe I'll go ahead and provide the slides afterwards, but I'm not going to provide the slides before I give the presentation, of course. So hopefully you guys can make it. Definitely worth it, I think. And obviously I want you guys to attend. So this is another thing. Google is now sending notifications to webmasters who submit reconsideration requests, and if they submit it over and over again, I guess, that you have to wait a few weeks before you resubmit a reconsideration request. Specifically, it says right here, we won't review another request from this site for a few weeks from now. We recommend that you take necessary steps and time to do whatever you need to do. So Google's saying you have to wait. Give yourself a few weeks, do the necessary work, and then resubmit a reconsideration request. I guess they're seeing too many of those. So this is another interesting thread. A Googler went ahead and discussed how Google might not index your URLs, at least specifically the URLs that you submit in your sitemap, because you might have a canonical issue with your site. So the specific example here is, I believe, the person verified, or I think he verified the www version of the site. He submitted a sitemap which had URLs from non-www, and he was wondering why it shows 0 sitemaps indexed, because the one he verified versus the one he submitted, and I think there's also a redirect going on from the non-w to the www and www to non-www. You got to make sure you're consistent, that whatever you submit in your sitemap file, www or non-www, is the same as what you have indexed in the primary domain in Google Webmaster Tools, as well as the ones that are actually live. So try to be as consistent as possible with this, because otherwise you could somewhat confuse Google. John Euler from Google went ahead and said, you shouldn't change your URLs for SEO purposes. Specifically, he said, Google likes dynamic URLs, and he said, I recommend not changing them if you just want to change them for SEO purposes. This is in a specific case. In this case, I kind of disagree. I'm looking at this specific case, and the URLs look like this. Search, question mark, manufacturer equals whatever. Question mark, keyword equals whatever. Those types of URLs, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, Google finds to be search-related URLs or tag-related URLs, and Google doesn't want to index search result pages or tag-related pages or keyword-related pages. So these technically, I looked at the site, they're not necessarily search pages. They're really landing pages of specific content that the site has. I would, in this case, if the site's not being ranked well, or if the content's not being picked up at a percentage rate that he wants, let's say if 80% of the content's not being picked up on these URLs, I would go ahead and replace these and then do redirects from the search to those URLs. Typically, I'd recommend, don't change URLs if you have, dynamic parameters in there, fine. But when you see search question mark or keywords in the URL like that, like a keyword equals whatever, in those cases, I might disagree with John on that. Obviously, it depends on a case-by-case basis, but in this case, I think I disagree in that area. Keep this in mind. Now, if Google cannot access your robot.txt file, then they might stop crawling your site. Specifically, Eric from Google said this in the thread, and this is something that comes up often, but nobody really covers it. In short, if your robot.txt file does not serve up a 200 response code or a 404 response code, either yeah is okay or no it's not there, not found, then Google will say, I can't get to this robot.txt file, or I can get to it, but if it can't get to it, or if it definitely doesn't get those 2 responses, it's going to say something's going on, I'm a little nervous, I can't go ahead and crawl your site because I don't know what content you do or don't want me to index. So you got to be careful with that. This is a topic I posted this morning. So there's a Schema.org thing for user interaction. Specifically, the all options are these: user blocks, user check-ins, user comments, user downloads, user likes, user page visits, user plays, user plus ones, and user tweets. So those are obviously all social interactions, user interactions on the social side, also user interactions on the views and plays and stuff like that. The question is, in a Webmaster World thread, some guy said, hey, I have 1,000 Facebook likes on a page. It was a very popular page. I got 1,000 likes. Is Google going to take notice? And are they going to rank the page accordingly? The answer is maybe. I mean, truth is, Google doesn't look at Facebook likes. They don't even use Google Plus ones or whatever they're called, pluses or shares, for ranking purposes in the direct ranking algorithm. That's what Markup said. 2, if a page is very popular on social, Google's probably going to want to make sure it's probably based on the other factors in their algorithm, they're probably going to go ahead and rank that well anyway. So the page is popular, people like it, I'm sure Google's going to use other factors to actually like those pages as well. The question is, should you communicate to Google, Bing, or other search engines your user interactions through the Schema.org markup? Obviously, if you do that, you have to do it in real time. You have to go ahead and use the APIs provided by Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and so forth to get that data, or you have to use a social analytics engine to actually get that data and then populate it automatically. I wouldn't recommend manually going ahead and adding these Schema.org things to your pages and updating the tweets, number of tweets on a manual basis, and number of likes on a number of basis for each page. That would be just ridiculous. All right, finally, it was New Year's. Of course, we had some Googlers working on New Year's, not New Year's Eve, but actually New Year's Day. At least I don't believe. So we had 2 Googlers, at least that I found. I cannot pronounce her name, I'm sorry. And also Gary. We're all working on New Year's. They posted several things. Of course, the top contributors are working. And finally, let's go ahead and share those New Year's Eve logos. So this is the Google one. For New Year's Day, they switched it around. For 3 and the 4, switched around. New Year's, Yahoo had an animated logo for both New Year's Day and New Year's Eve. Bing only had it for New Year's Eve. Dogpile, again, only for New Year's Eve. We also had one for New Year's Eve. And I believe, let's go next story. And the New Year's Day logos, again, this is the Google one from 24 to 3. Yahoo had their updated logo. Baidu had a nice logo, and Sego from Asia also had a nice logo, and Mr. Jingles got all dressed up as well. This is what Bing had, and this Panda, I don't know why. But anyway, I hope everybody had a nice New Year's, and I hope everybody has a healthy, successful, and happy 2014. I'll speak to you guys next week. This is the Search Buzz video recap. My name again is Barry Schwartz, and this is the search news we covered over the past week at seroundtable.com. Today again is January 3rd, 2014. Bye.